Thank you. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Covington City Council meeting for Tuesday, January 24th. As a reminder, this City Council meeting is being held telephonically and virtually in compliance with state executive and legislative actions responding to the COVID-19 emergency. With that, we'll call this meeting to order. And Krista, if you'd like to please call the roll.
Yes, Councilmember Kokel.
Here.
Councilmember Soltis.
Here.
Councilmember Hargenhausen.
Present.
Councilmember Simomo.
Here.
Councilmember Porter.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Here.
Mayor Wagner.
I am here.
We have a quorum, Your Honor.
Thank you, Krista. If everybody could please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all for that. Next up is approval of the agenda. Regan, do we have any changes for tonight?
No, we don't, Mayor.
I would look for a motion to approve the agenda as posted.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved by Jared and seconded by, I believe, Jennifer. Call for a roll call vote. Jared, how do you vote?
Aye.
Sean, how do you vote?
Aye.
Christina, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jennifer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Joe, how do you vote?
Aye.
Beth, how do you vote? I didn't hear you, Beth. How do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. And I vote aye. It's unanimous to approve the agenda. First up is public communication. We have a presentation on the Howard Hansen fish passage. Tom Cowan and Mark Antonio of the Covington Water District. I see Mark. Is Tom here with us tonight too, or is it going to be you, Mark?
Tom is probably still busy in his meeting with the Board of Commissioners. He's got his board meeting tonight. So I will go ahead and start if that's okay, and maybe he'll join us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Mark Antonio, and I'm working with Covington Water District to help them get the Fish Passage project approved and funded, so that they can get the additional water eventually that they need for future growth and to support all of the Covington residents and customers of Covington Water District. So as you probably already know, the ability to get that extra water that they're hoping to secure depends upon building a fish passage project at the Howard Hansen Dam. The Corps of Engineers, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Seattle office is responsible for building this fish passage facility, which will be designed to let downstream migration of juvenile salmon pass by the dam and be able to continue their journey out to the ocean so that they can become adults and move back upriver. A little bit of background about myself. I am a retired Army officer. 25 years in the Army. After that, I was a fisheries biologist in the state of Washington, where I worked on salmon habitat recovery projects all across mostly Pierce County. And after that, I was a general manager of water districts, both in Washington state and in Southern California. And I recently retired from being a general manager of a water district in Yorba Linda in Southern California. And Tom kind of brought me out of retirement to help bring this project back to life. As you may know, this project started in 1999. Congress had funded this fish passage project, and to this date, it hasn't been built. So the Corps of Engineers, for whatever reason, hasn't seen fit to get the construction finished. They started at one time in 2003, and then they stopped construction in 2011 when they realized they weren't going to have enough money in what Congress had allocated to complete the project. So they scrapped it at that point, and now it's just been languishing for years. So Tom and Covington Water District hired me to help get this project going, since I have experience working with the Army Corps of Engineers and also as a fisheries biologist and understanding that aspect of it. And also as a general manager of water districts, they felt I could help. So that's what we're doing right now. We're busy trying to get this project jump started again. We have also hired a federal lobbyist, a lobby firm in Washington, D.C. to help with this process. And first, I know Tom wanted me to thank you all for your support in the past, and especially with signing on to the letter that went to our congressional delegations so that they would get the Army Corps of Engineers back on track and try to get them to get this project started. And we're hoping that down the road, over the next couple months, if we have another project like that, that the city of Covington would be willing to sign on as well. And so that pretty much sums up what's going on. I went to Howard Hanson Dam yesterday with our federal lobbyists and showed them the dam and what is going on there. And hopefully we're going to get this project finally resurrected and get built, because this is the single biggest project in the entire Puget Sound that will produce more salmon than any other project that you can do in the Puget Sound. This is the #1 benefit and on the priority list. So it's a great project. We've got support from everyone to get this built, and it will actually produce a lot more salmon than the Elwha River Dam removal did. And that's been pretty well celebrated. And this will make that look small in comparison, because there's over 100 miles of spawning and rearing habitat above the dam that will be open for the first time since 1912. So that was my update. I don't want to take up more of your time, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Anybody have any questions? Jennifer?
Hi, thank you. I was curious if, besides signing on letters of support, if there are any other opportunities for council to support the efforts for this.
Great question. And there may be. So what we're hoping to do now is we hired the federal lobbyist to help us have meetings with the appropriate congressional representatives and senators as well. So when we have those meetings, which will most likely be via Zoom or Teams because of the COVID situation still, most of the representatives are not taking face-to-face meetings at this time. It would be fantastic if any of you are available to be a participant in that meeting, because they really want to hear from electeds like yourselves who are representing your constituents. It really carries a lot of weight to hear support from the electeds, much more so than it does from staff representatives like myself. It's very important. So that will be an opportunity. And when we get those meetings, we will send emails out to let you know, and we'll work through Regan to get the word out to you so that you can be aware of those. And if you're available, we would love to have you participate in some of those meetings.
Okay, great. Thank you. Anything else?
I think that's pretty
Okay.
much the main thing. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Sean?
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. It's pretty impressive stuff. I actually worked on the Elwha Dam restoration project, so it's pretty amazing
Great.
to see there'll be that the potential for that much fish. You answered my question about, when are the dates of those meetings? So yeah, get that to us as soon as you can. And if there's ever another opportunity to go tour the dam, I'd be, willing to go do that as well. So let us know if there's ever an opportunity. I don't know what's going on with my computer. Opportunity to get out there and actually see it.
Absolutely. And we will let you know if we do get the opportunity. We actually had a really difficult time getting to see the dam with our lobbyists yesterday. whatever reason, the Army Corps of Engineers is reluctant to let anyone go up there. The Representative Kim Schreier went up there a few weeks ago, and apparently the amount of workload that caused their staff, which absolutely baffles me, especially having been in the Army for 25 years and having participated in lots of these from the military side. I don't understand what the difficulty was, but I know that it was quite, it was something that they didn't want to see often.
Thank you, Sean. Beth?
Thank you. Yes. Thank you, Mark, for the presentation. Two quick questions. So, given the significance of
We
this
can hardly
project-
hear you, Beth. Sorry.
Given the significance of this dam project or this fish passage project, how reliant is it on other culverts projects as well for that fish passage to work? So if this gets fully funded and done, is there that trickle down effect needing help from the other fish culvert restorations?
You know, I would look at this in the reverse of that. And one of the things that I did when I was a salmon fisheries biologist with Pierce County before was I cataloged all of the barrier culverts in the entire watersheds of RIA 10, 11, 12, and 15. So I cataloged over 600 culvert barriers in the Puyallup watershed alone, just in that one river. So I'm well aware of what the situation you're talking about. What frustrates me is that in doing all of these barrier removals, we've done a lot already. There's still plenty more to go, but we've done a lot of the really important ones, and yet we're not getting the benefit of them because some of the main stem river hasn't been opened up, particularly on the Green River. There's 60 miles of main stem Green River above the dam that's not being utilized at all, and 100 miles if you include the tributaries and other creeks that go into it. So those culvert projects, the benefit of those will be magnified by getting this. This one is huge compared to any of those, or even all of those culvert projects put together. That was a very good question.
Great, thank you. And I guess the second question then, is there a concern with water supply? And what does that look like if this thing stalls any further? Clearly, I'm supportive of it personally and would be more than happy to do the tour and sit on any meetings if that's an opportunity. But what does that look like for Covington's future?
So you never know for sure because you don't know what the weather's going to do. We pretty well can project what population increases will be and industrial uses will go up to as well. With the latest projections that Covington has done, there could be a need for additional water to support the planned growth by the year 2035. So that's why they're really anxious to get this additional water. And this water, by the way, is the more economical water. Covington has other water that they can utilize as well when they get short on supplies, but it'll come at a much higher cost. And nobody wants to pay huge water bills. And so Covington is planning ahead, and they've already made an investment to secure this water from extra water behind Howard Hanson Dam. In fact, the partners that are working with Tacoma and have those water rights haven't been able to use those water rights yet because the fish passage facility hasn't been built. The water that they were allocated to use for growth and for customers is being used to supplement low river flows in the summer months. And when this fish passage facility gets built, that water won't be needed for that purpose, and that will become available for municipal uses. And so that's what they're trying to do with this. So it's not what I would call a dire situation with water, but being good managers, they're planning ahead for the future to make sure that there isn't a dire problem and huge cost increase and have everyone say, well, didn't you see this coming? And with the warming climate, if we continue to have the warming climate that we do, the storage for our water has been in the snowpack. And as the snowpack keeps melting, if it continues on that trend, then we're not going to have that snowpack for that late summer water. And that's why we need to raise the level in the reservoir another 10 feet to compensate for that loss of snowpack. So that's what's happening.
Great, thank you very much.
You bet.
Thank you, Beth. Does anybody else have questions for Mark? Well, Mark, thank you very much for taking your time to show up tonight and give us a great explanation and update with Howard Hanson Dam. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you all.
Thank you. And say hi to Tom for us.
I will.
Thank you. Next up is our first of 2 public comment periods. Speakers will state their name, address, and organization. Comments are directed to the City Council, not the audience or staff. And comments are not intended for conversation or debate and are limited to no more than 4 minutes per speaker. Notice to all participants pursuant to state law RCW 42.17a.555, campaigning for any ballot measure or candidate in City Hall and or during any portion of the City Council meeting, including the audience comment portion of the meeting, is prohibited. And just to let everybody know, we do have 2 public hearings later on tonight. We do have one for public testimony on the American Rescue Plan Act and a second one on the proposed ordinance adopting the 2021 major amendments to the Lake Point Urban Village Development. So if you're here to speak for either of those 2 public hearings, please hold your comments till that public hearing so we can get those on the record for the public hearing. With that, I'll open up for the first public comment period. If there's anybody in the audience wishing to address the council, please raise your hand.
Mayor,
Yes.
we do have one call-in listener. If that person would like to speak, they would need to press *9 to raise their hand.
Is there anybody in the audience wishing to address council? Please raise your hand or press *9 if you're on the phone. Seeing nobody here to raise their hand, we will move on to the next item of business. We will have a second opportunity for public comment and then the 2 public hearings later on. Next is approval of the consent agenda consisting of items C1 through C4. Look for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved by Sean and seconded by Beth to approve the consent agenda consisting of items C1 through C4. Call for a roll call vote. Jared, how do you vote?
Aye.
Sean, how do you vote? I didn't hear you, Sean. You're still on mute. Just give me a thumbs up.
Aye.
There
Does
we
that
go.
work?
Thank you, Sean. Christina, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jennifer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Joe, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Beth, how do you vote?
Aye.
I also vote aye. It is unanimous to approve the consent agenda. Next up on our agenda is reports of commissions. We will start with the Arts Commission. Do we have Marita or Patty? I see Patty Melton is here joining us tonight. Welcome, Patty. Thank you for showing up tonight. And you are on mute and it's all yours.
Hello, everyone. I am filling in for Marita tonight, who got an unexpected invitation to Hawaii. And so I'm here and she's there. Just want to fill you in on a few things. We have dusted off our brains after the holidays and are working on a few things that we already have in progress. We are looking at the public art and maintenance that might be needed, and focusing right now on the skate park, looking at options for touching that up or whatever needs to be done. We're also looking at the art that the city has already purchased over the years, and not all of it is displayed. And the owner of the building of where City Hall is has hung up tracks for art to be hung. And we are working with Pat and the building owner to get that hung up, the remaining pieces that aren't displayed already hung up outside City Hall. So that will just make it more available to the public, which will be really nice. We had planned a retreat this month, but based on the new rules with the city of no getting together. We are gonna push that off, which was really kind of a disappointment because a lot of us haven't met each other in person yet, but it is what it is. And so we'll just put that off for a month or two. When things improve, we'll get together and brainstorm our future agendas. And the rotating art that we have at CCP is still ongoing. We're working on getting a contractor before we actually put the call for the art out. And the last thing that we're working on right now, which is kind of a new thing for us, is we're assisting a property owner of Covington Place with a vinyl wrap on a PSC utility box. And this is all paid for by the property owner, but we are helping him with the art selection portion of it, which would be really cool. A start maybe to some collaboration with other business owners in the community to bring more art out there. So we've got that going on right now, and that's really about it.
Thank you, Patty. Does anybody have any questions for Patty? Well, Patty, thank you very much for a great report. Please pass on our thanks to you and everybody on the Arts Commission. And thank you for all that you do for our community.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Patty. Have a great evening.
You too.
Next is our Covington Economic Development Council, and I see Josh Lyons is with us tonight. Welcome, Josh.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Good evening, Council. Yes, I get the pleasure of updating you on CEDIS's activities tonight. And so briefly, as we move into the new year, CEDIS, we tend to meet the Thursday after this meeting. So you tend to get some stale information, if you will. We'll be meeting this Thursday. So the last time we met was going back into early December. But the message is pretty much the same as we move into the new year. We're going to continue focusing on branding. You guys need to see my face. There we go. Sorry, everybody. That's way better. Okay. We're going to continue focusing on branding. You can't talk about branding and then not show your face. That's just kind of weird. So, that's really been an 18-month deal for us, and for a little while, I think we were kind of feeling our way through what role CEDIS could play in that effort. More recently, we kind of teamed up with the Arts Council to talk about something related to a Covington X Factor that we could really hang our hat on and brand something around, that's started to take on kind of a life of its own in some ways. Justin Van Lanschut was mentioned as, he's kind of the superhero of Covington right now, doing all kinds of cool stuff. He's leading the Clean, Safe, Welcoming initiative. And we recently met as a group and discussed how do we really focus on making Covington the clean, safe, welcoming community that we desire it to be. So CEDIS is going to kind of be involved in that effort in a number of ways, particularly around the welcoming piece of that, but also in the clean, safe regard. Our last meeting involved Chief Roberts coming to our meeting and presenting on SEPTED principles. And basically Thursday's meeting is where we're going to discuss creating a plan to reach out to various businesses that we think could use a little bit of information around that and see if we can help them just make some quick, easy changes that we know work in reducing crime and reducing some of the activity that we don't desire to have here in Covington. So that'll be our next meeting. We'll talk about that and we'll continue talking about how CEDIS can be involved in making Covington a more welcoming community as people come in to shop and do business in Covington. So that's what I got.
Thank you, Josh. Does council have any questions for Josh? Josh, I just want to say thank you to you and each of the members of CETUS, and it's admirable that you are teaming up with the Arts Commission to help further Covington moving forward, and with Justin. So thank you very much, and please pass on our thanks to everybody.
You bet, I will. Thank you.
Have a great evening.
You too.
Next is our Equity, Cultural, and Social Justice Committee. Bronwyn, welcome. You are on mute. We still can't hear you, Bronwyn.
Okay, is that any better?
That's perfect. Welcome.
Okay, sorry about that. I clicked the wrong buttons every single time, and I'm talking to my husband going, Jay, help me. And he's like, what's happening? Anyway, belated Happy New Year. And so with ECSJ, what we ended the year talking about was looking at some strategic plans from other cities as we are getting, trying to get ours in order. We had started with our list of actionable items, and it just kind of dragged out, but we're planning to get those wrapped up. We still have a few that we need to do. We also have our goal, which we really haven't solidified yet, but of how we're going to do it, but is to actually become visible in the community. And so that's really high on the list of what we want to do this year. I'm also still really pushing us being active citizens in Covington before we can be active citizen commissioners. And so the challenge that I set forth was to do something in the community. And so my challenge was to do the Christmas tree and the Christmas tree drive-through, which I thought was so cute, but so wet. So that's kind of the thing, is as we work to make ourselves visible, we are trying to just make ourselves visible as citizens first, and then be able to put on the hat and say, yeah, we're commissioners, how are you? And then of course, always keeping a weather eye open for other commissioners. And so that's really what we're doing.
Thank you, Bronwyn. Is any council member have any questions? Well, thank you to your entire commission, and for going out and looking at other cities and what they are doing, and coming up with a plan for Covington. So thank you, and please pass on our thanks to each of your members on the commission.
Will do. Thank you very much. And Christina, I just got to tell you, this is my favorite pen, and I still have it. And it tells me that I should elect you. Already did that, but I still love the pen. All right. Have a good one, everybody.
Thank you. Have a great evening. We do not have a report from Human Services, as they did not meet in January. And next up is Parks and Recreation. Laura Morrissey, welcome. Welcome, Laura.
Hi there. All right, we met last week for Parks and Recreation. We got an update on the pros plan that is ongoing. That was the bulk of our meeting, was hearing from the consultant about what they are putting together. So far, there was a survey that was done at the end of last year. He took the results from that survey, put together kind of some proposals, some ideas, and now there's another survey that is out, and based off of the information that was gathered from the first survey. So if you have not had a chance to take a look at that survey, you guys all live in Covington, your voices count. Please take it if you haven't, and you'll get the pros plan eventually, but step by step, it's been coming to the Parks Commission, and the consultant is doing a really thoughtful job There's honestly no real surprises for me so far in there. I don't think there's going to be surprises necessarily in terms of what people in Covington want, which I think is a good thing. That on the whole, I feel like we have a pretty good pulse on the community and the things that they are asking for. Our second item on the agenda was a project update for Soco Park, South Community Park. I won't really spend any time on that because Ethan is going to bring you an update later on tonight. In his staff agenda that Ethan gave to us, I just want to pull out a couple of things that you might find interesting. The Aquatic Center has been hiring people like crazy, trying to rebuild their lifeguards, trying to rebuild their pool of swim instructors. So I believe they have a staff of 20 right now, maybe 25. Normally they tend to run at a staff of like 45, and I asked and the high was 75. So they're in the process of rebuilding with all of this, and the demand is still there. So they're trying to get to the point where they can meet it. Let's see, also holidays. So Bronwyn mentioned the drive-through holidays at the park, and my family and I went to it, and personally, I loved it. I thought it was a great activity, a great idea. I like the Christmas tree lighting. That's always fun, but I have to say in the winter, especially when it's dumping rain, it's really nice to be warm and dry in your car. That was not, the other people who were volunteering were not warm and dry, but I was sure happy to drive through and be warm and dry in my car. So I'm not sure what the future holds for that event, but I would not be sad if it just kept on recurring every year because I like being warm and dry. A couple other things. Jenkins Creek Park. This is the last thing I'll pull out for you. So the property that is by Jenkins Creek Park that used to house the mobile home, not mobile homes. The word is escaping me now. RV storage. So that has been secured by the city, and so there will be a plan that will come to the Parks Commission next month, I believe, to give Jenkins Creek Park finally an entrance, to make it visible from the street, to make it just appear to the community, because that park is kind of hidden and tucked away. And it's amazing to me how many people do not know that park even exists, even after living in Covington for a number of years. So I'm very excited that this park is finally going to have a face. Other news of note, we lost one commissioner. We said goodbye to Thomas Russell. Last week was his last meeting with us. He chose to not renew. So we're going to be down a commissioner. And otherwise, our next meeting in February is looking quite hefty. We have 7 bullet points on the working agenda. Some of that might get pushed off to March, but we will be looking at the pros plan once again, kind of a more finalized version before it comes to you. Also Soco Park, Jenkins Creek Park, and some stuff within the Parks and Rec department. So things are happening in parks. It's very exciting. And sometimes it feels like nothing happens and then everything happens. And this is one of those times where things are rolling and it's not necessarily visible, but they're moving. And that is very, very exciting. Any questions for me?
Thank you, Laura. Does council have any questions for Laura? All right, Laura, thank you very much. And please pass on our thanks for the commission that keeps rolling along. So thank you.
Sure.
I had to copy that and steal that from you.
All right, good night.
Thanks, Laura. Next up is Planning Commission. Murray Williams, welcome.
Good evening. I got briefly cut off there, so I hope it's time for me to join now.
It is your turn, sir.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. I just want to give you a quick update on things that have happened so far in 2022 for the Planning Commission. We had our first meeting last week, and our primary topic for last week was to go over this year's and a little bit into next year's work plan. The most immediate items on the work plan that we'll be looking at in the first quarter here are beginning our long-term effort on the 2024 comprehensive plan update. So that's the little bit of 2023. Also reviewing some minor changes to the wireless communication facility code. It looks like some things did not quite get where they needed to be with the first run through on that. Staff have identified some items that need some review, and so we'll be picking that up in the next few weeks. We'll also be looking into the 30-lot single access limitation. That appears to be dampening some interest on the part of developers in infill opportunities for building. So we're going to get a presentation on that a little bit later this quarter, and we'll begin to see what needs to be done there. Also continuing our ongoing regular review of code amendments, if anything comes up from the staff or if the public brings anything forth. And lastly, we're making a little bit more official push, and this is pretty much staff, I shouldn't say we, is making a major push to make commissioner onboarding for the planning commissioner an easier and more detailed thing. So we're going through and basically providing our input on that, but they're doing a lot of work to put that together. So those are the near-term items. There are some other items that may come along later in the year, depending upon what the council decides in their offsite next week. And we will go from there. So that's pretty much where we're at so far this year. Does anybody have any questions?
Beth.
Hi, yeah. Hi, Marie. Nice to see you.
Hi, Beth. Good to see you too.
A quick question. Could you just repeat that part about the 30 lot? What is that? I'm not.
Yes,
sure.
I don't have a whole lot of detail on it yet because we were just going over the work plan and the actual detail of the problem wasn't presented just yet. But there is apparently some limitation on how many sites you can put on a lot that has only one access to it. So if you were to look, I'm trying to think of an example. There's a lot between Home Depot and Jenkins Creek Elementary, which were it not for the road that goes to Jenkins Creek would have only a single access. And that would limit how many sites could be put on that lot if that were the case. So there's some detail around that. I'll have more information on that in a future update, but that's what I know for right now.
Great, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Beth. Does anybody else have any questions for Murray? Well, Murray, thank you very much for a great update. I really appreciate it. And please pass on our thanks to each of the Planning Commission members for all the hard work that they do as well.
I will absolutely do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Murray. Have a great evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Next up is Youth Council. Do we have anybody here from the Youth Council to give an update tonight?
Youth Council will not have a report.
Okay, thank you, Krista. And with that, then we will move into our first of two public hearings. Tonight, we have a public hearing to receive testimony from the public regarding the American Rescue Plan Act, this being the date set and proper notices having been posted and published in accordance with state and local law. This public hearing is declared open. And Casey, if you can provide the staff report for this item.
Sure. So the purpose of this public hearing is just to provide some additional community input as required under the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA. And I was just going to present the results of the survey that we did last year, just so you could kind of see how things went. So give me just 1 second. Let me share my screen. All right, can everybody see that? Okay, so last year, as part of our public outreach for the ARPA money that we received, we made a survey, and Carla was wonderful and put it out on all our social media platforms. And we actually received quite a few responses. We received 110 responses. So 98 folks that lived in town and 12 that didn't. And then we asked just a couple of different questions. One of them was, what was your age group? And you can kind of see the majority of them fell between the 35 to 44 year age group. And then we asked them some questions. And so one of the questions we asked was, which of the following aspects of Covington are most important to you? And we kind of asked folks to pick 4 of them maximum. So you can kind of see the ones that really got the most votes: the ease of getting around the city, and physical safety and security. So kind of transportation and public safety were kind of our popular responses to that question. And then another question we asked is, how would you like to see these dollars allocated? And again, just like in line with the previous slide, it was improve neighborhood safety and invest in city infrastructure. And then we kind of gave folks an option to drop in a comment, like how would they improve neighborhood safety? How would they invest in city infrastructure? And my next slide will kind of show you how those folks answered. So the wording that has the biggest letters are where our most responses. And then, you know, the little ones are kind of filtered in there, but more police, roads, some references to drug use. It was quite the gamut, but most of it was police and roads. We got fix some potholes in there, vandalism, all sorts of stuff. But those were the 2 main priorities that folks asked for. And then just as a reminder, how we currently have the funds allocated in the 2022 budget. So we've got the biggest pot of money right now is going towards technology improvements and administration. And the technology is anything towards getting everybody on laptops in case they need to go remote again, to having new HVAC installed at the police department, to administration for administering the grant itself. And then we have the small business grants for $150,000. And I'll just mention that we've updated all of the applications and the contract information, and it's just over to the city attorney right now for review. And we're hoping to roll that program out maybe in the next 2-3 weeks. And then the human services programs, we allocated $450,600. And those also we're hoping to roll out in February. And we're going to start advertising the applications with our current human services providers and then go from there. And then the utility aid, we did $50,000, $25,000 to each, the Covington Water District and the Sioux Creek Water and Sewer. And I mentioned at our last meeting that the Sioux Creek Water and Sewer currently has declined the money, but I have let them know that once they get their staffing back up and running, they're down a couple of accountants over there right now, that these funds really go through 2024. So if in 6 months they can reach back out to me, then that would be great, and we can get that going for the sewer district. I will mention that with the sewer district, they can't turn people's sewer off. So with the water district, it was really important to get that one going, and we've already sent them the contract to review, and we're just waiting to see if they have any edits on that. And then we have the one surface water management project that we're doing for $420,000. And then we have a transfer to the street fund. And I have about $1 million that's unallocated. We've allocated 1.9 million, and we're holding $200,000 in reserve that you guys wanted to hold just in case for any future spending, anything that comes up during this year that we want to reallocate that. And then the remainder is going to transfer to the street fund in 2023 and 2024. And we still haven't had any, we haven't received any guidance on whether or not we're going to receive our second distribution in June, but I'll keep you guys updated as I hear more about that. And that was all I had for you.
Thank you, Casey. The ground rules for public comment during this public hearing are as follows. When your name is called, please give your name and state whether you are a resident of the city of Covington or not. Please limit your comments to 4 minutes. The city clerk will set a timer that will go off when your time is up. And when the timer goes off, please wind up promptly. Is there anybody in the audience wishing to address council during this public hearing for the public testimony on the American Rescue Plan Act funds? Please raise your hand. Anybody in the audience wishing to address council during this first public hearing?
Mayor,
Yes.
As a reminder, we do have one call-in listener. If they would like to speak, they will need to dial *9 to raise their hand.
Thank you, Krista. Is there anybody in the audience wishing to address council? Seeing nobody raise their hand, I declare this public hearing closed. Does council have any questions for Casey on the American Rescue Plan Act funds? Joe.
Yeah, thank you for that information, Casey. I'm looking at my copy of the packet, and of course, we don't have the budget allotment for the for everything that we have right now. But my question is, when we say administrative and things like that in the budget, forgive my son, he wants to play with a harmonica if you hear him. When we say that, what are we talking about? Because I feel like when people will automatically think that that's salaries that we're talking about. Can we get a breakdown of that just for everyone's knowledge?
A good chunk of it is salaries. So my senior accountant that just started last June, she is going to.
You're breaking up, Casey. We can't understand.
All right, sorry. Is that better?
Nope.
Huh. Let me turn off my video to see if that helps. Is that better?
You're still breaking up.
Is that it better?
No.
Oh, okay. I can try calling back in.
My question broke Casey's computer. I feel bad now.
In the eyes.
I'm gonna text Casey, just maybe it's best if she just call in.
Attempting to call in. I don't know if you can hear me or not, or if you just want to.
You're still breaking up pretty badly.
Was there any public that wanted to make a comment, Mayor, that could do so while we're waiting for Casey to come back online?
We already did public comment and nobody raised their hand.
I just wondered if there might be any additional ones.
Mayor,
Yes.
sometimes if we have everyone else mute, it may help with the bandwidth.
Okay.
So we can try that.
I am seeing, Mayor, one attendee that has their hand raised.
Okay, well, we've closed the public hearing.
Okay.
That might be Casey.
That's
Oh, is
That's
that Casey?
Yeah, that is Casey. That's her number.
All right. Well, 5 minutes later, I'm back on. Can you hear me now?
Yes, Casey.
I apologize. I don't generally have any issues with that. So Joe, as answer to your question, the administrative portion is actually to administer the grant. And we are anticipating I have $100,000 currently in ARPA administration. And that helps offset the salaries and wages for our senior accountant that will be running all of the programs. So she'll be running the small business grant programs, the human services programs, utility aid, all of those. It's taking, I would say, probably 20 hours a week. We'll be taking about 20 hours a week to administer all of those programs. So that will just help us offset those costs.
Okay, thank you. I definitely needed to hear that, and I think our citizens needed to hear that. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
And Casey, it was a bit scratchy, but I don't know if Casey covered this, but last time we did the small business grants, we did it administratively through Evergreen Financial. We're going to be able to do it much more efficiently and more cost effective in-house.
Thank you. Beth?
Yes, thank you. So the $100,000 administrative for salary, is that over the course of through 2024? Is that what we're thinking?
We're anticipating that'll be over just this year. And it'll be charged on actual. So she's keeping track of her time. So it could be less than that. I don't anticipate it being more than that. That was just our estimate of hours that we thought it might take to run the program.
Okay, so basically at 0.5 of a full-time is going to cost $100,000 for 1 year. Which is,
correct.
If it's 20 hours a week. Okay.
Yeah, I feel that's a little bit high because I was also factoring in IT administration, and also I can do some of Regan's time as well. But we haven't currently been tracking that. So it's probably going to be on the lower side. It'll just probably be Siobhan's time that we'll be tracking.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I guess the question that I have then is, given the survey results where police and roads and safety seem to be the higher priority, it's not receiving a majority of the funds. Can you just give a breakdown quickly again, what the human services portion would look like?
Sure. So let me just kind of share my screen again. It's not going to be pretty because it's my budget, but let's see here. This is the kind of what you guys looked at during the budget workshop. Let me make it a little bit bigger here. So
and let me just add while you're pulling that up, Casey.
Sure.
Beth, police obviously is a major priority in the community, but spending the ARPA funds, these are one-time dollars at least, right, that expire. And so hiring ongoing expenses with this would be a really difficult move to do. And that's why, you asked the question, why isn't a majority of the money going to what the survey brought back? Obviously, the survey respondents weren't necessarily thinking of, one-time funds as opposed to ongoing.
Right. And I'm not suggesting that we necessarily do anything. And I feel like we did a really good job going over this with the budget, but I think it's just this might be the time to bring up where some of that human services money is going to, and if it does, maybe some of it needs to be moved into the roads fund, for example. I'm thinking more along the lines of roads.
So for the human services, we sent out a needs assessment to our current providers and asked them, sky's the limit. What do you need right now, for COVID related expenditures? And this is who we received answers from. So this section right here, we received $515,000 worth of needs currently. So these are just the folks that sent us back our questionnaire that we had sent out, but we're going to be doing a whole new application process in February with these folks, plus some folks that still didn't get a chance to respond, because it was a pretty tight turnaround last year when I was asking for their just their needs. So these are some of the things. There's one on here that didn't currently qualify, and we're working with them to see if they have some things that may qualify that are COVID related, but I wouldn't rely too heavily on these numbers until we get the true applications back in February. Is that helpful?
That is, thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Any council member have any other questions for Casey on the ARPA funds? All right, I don't see anybody else raise their hand. Casey, thank you very much for this update. This is just an information item. We are not, we're just receiving public testimony and we're not taking any action on it tonight. Next up is our second public hearing. And tonight we have a public hearing to receive testimony from the public regarding the proposed ordinance adopting the 2021 major amendments to the Lake Point Urban Village Development Agreement. This being the date set and proper notices having been posted and published in accordance with state and local law, I hereby declare this public hearing now open. With that, I'll turn it over to Ryan Harriman. I believe Ryan is giving the update.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the City of Covington City Council. I'll be providing the update or the presentation this evening. After the presentation, you'll be hearing from Nancy Rogers, a representative from Lake Point Covington LLC, and she'll be providing some information from the applicant. So with that, let's go ahead and get started with the presentation. All right, can you all see this? Okay. Tonight I'll be presenting the proposed 2021 Lake Point Development Agreement major amendments. This was a long process which started in 2018 and just recently came to the point where we can bring this to the council for a public hearing and deliberation and possible action. The website for this is www.covingtonwa.gov/lakepoint. Questions, my email address is listed on there. Once again, this is a meeting that's being recorded and all materials have been posted on the project website prior to this meeting. So the council's role this evening is like I mentioned, is to review, have a public hearing, and possibly take action on the proposed amendments. Council will be hearing a presentation from staff and a presentation from Oak Point Communities, the master developer for the applicant, Lake Point Covington Inc., and the Lake Point Urban Village. At the end of the public hearing, the council deliberates on the proposed amendments, staff recommendations, and public comments provided in writing and or during public hearing, and based on the information in the record, the council may take action on the proposed amendments. This is a legislative action that is consistent with CMC 14.30.060. A notice of this public hearing was published in the Seattle Times on December 29th, 2021, posted on the city website on 6 notice boards located throughout the entrance to the sub area and existing roadways, and also mailed to all property owners with 500 feet of the sub area boundary and to anybody who previously received information. So how this works, the opening, the mayor obviously opened the public hearing, and then once again, you'll hear from staff. And then council members may ask questions, obviously, for clarification purposes. And then you'll hear from the applicant. Once that's done and council members are done asking questions, then the public has the opportunity to provide testimony. Once that takes place, when there's no more members of the public wishing to comment, the mayor will close the public hearing and no further public comments will be taken. The city council will then deliberate on the proposed amendments, staff recommendation, and hopefully take action this evening. So here's a little bit of history, why we're here. In 2018, Lake Point Covington Inc. also known as Lake Point, the master developer, submitted a comprehensive plan docket application, also known as LA 18-0002, which authorized the evaluation on May 18th, 2018 by the City Council. So none of what you hear this evening should come as a shock or a surprise to you, because quite frankly, you've already reviewed everything before. You've previously reviewed the amendments to the comp plan, which was directly related to this proposal and were adopted. You previously reviewed amendments to the planned action ordinance, which are directly related to this proposal and were also adopted. And now we're coming to you this evening to align those amendments in the development agreement. And all we are doing is making everything consistent with each other. We could have brought all three amendments to you all at once. However, we decided to bring the development agreement to you last because the whole process was to lay the groundwork for the amendments with the comp plan updates, PAO amendments, and the subsequent environmental impact statement that was issued last year. Computer is getting ahead of me. So this is kind of just a visual showing you how development agreements work. The development agreements are legislative actions that cities have available to them to do large master plans. Development agreements are incredibly useful tools that ensure a project can be built with confidence. The agreement sets standards and conditions that govern the development of the property, provides certainty to the developer that the project will be isolated from changes in jurisdictional zoning laws over the course of the development, but also contracts the developer to provide benefits to the city, such as infrastructure improvements, public open space, or monetary payments into funds such as in lieu fees in the exchange of certainty. So the development agreement literally is a contract between a local jurisdiction and a property owner. The development agreement contains the obligations of both parties and lays out the various standards and conditions that will control the agreement of control the development of the subject property. Although the parties may enter into development agreement on a voluntary basis, once the agreement is signed, it becomes binding on all parties as well as their successors in interest. Imagine if Lake Point was to develop without a development agreement. What would that look like? Well, what certainty would the city have on how it was developed or when it was developed? The reality is Lake Point could develop without the development agreement, but chose to work with the city to come up with a voluntary agreement to shape our shared vision for the future. So this is kind of a map of, where we are now, how we got there. Started off with a sub-area plan, and then it progressed all the way to the development agreement amendments as you see before you this evening. Here's a general timeline. As mentioned, the city and the master developer have been working on the proposed amendments since 2018 through a series of meetings and negotiations. We wanted to have this done sooner, and we worked very diligently with the master developer to come up with this language that's being provided. So in your packet, you'll see information on what actually is being amended. And that includes 6 sections of development agreement. That's just 6 sections with 5 exhibits. And the 5 exhibits are a legal description and 4 math exhibits. What's important to remember is the project evolves sort of the agreements in place. We negotiated with the master developer through a nearly 3-year process, and this is what we came to an agreement on. One of the things to remember is that the development agreement amendments are simply an alignment of the work that was previously approved by council and nothing more, through the amendment of 6 sections in the development agreement and 5 exhibits. So here is Exhibit 2. This is, I believe, Exhibit J of the Lake Point Urban Village Development Agreement. This is also known as the Master Development Plan. There are annotations that are provided, I believe, in Exhibit 3 or Attachment 3 in your packet that go through all the information that are correlated to the little numbers you see on these maps. For instance, number 6 on this map refers to 2 proposed stoplights replaced with roundabouts as requested by city staff. As you see, there's 2 number 6s there, which correlate directly with the 3rd attachment in your council packet. Number 4 on there is referencing the Covington Highlands Trail near the western boundary was relocated to be moved outside of the treed buffer area. Number 5 on this map was a request from the King County Parks Department. The trail connection to Cedar Downs Park at the eastern cul-de-sac has been eliminated and a pocket park was added in that location in its replacement. The next exhibit you'll see is the master circulation plan. Also, please note that there are correlating numbers on the map that go along with the attachment 3 in your packet. For instance, item number 3 is provided on there. Is the Highway 18 trail rerouted to cross the Covington connector at 191st Place Southeast roundabout. The previous alignment shown on Exhibit J did not account for the 23-foot vertical wall requirement for the SR 18 improvements. The next map that you'll see in front of you is the phasing map. This provides the different phases. For instance, they've divided phase 1 into 2 phases. You'll see a 1A and a 1B. They now reflect the preliminary plat submittal for Maple Hills 5. Also, item number 10 on there is adding the Covington connector alignment to match the current design and master development plan. Last but not least is the master trails plan. As mentioned previously, this is also outlined in your attachment 3, which is in your packet. And this just basically goes over the information that was already provided in some of the other documents we've already seen. So next steps, like I mentioned earlier, you'll be hearing from Nancy Rogers, who will be representing the applicant this evening. Then we can move into public testimony and then the council deliberation and action. Right up here, we have the recommended motion that staff recommends city council pass an ordinance in substantial form as attached here to approving and adopting the 2021 major amendments to the Lake Point Urban Village Development Agreement and authorizes city manager to execute the same. Once again, this was published for public hearing notification in the Seattle Times on December 29th. Here's the website again. That'll give you more information. covingtonwa.gov/Lake Point. And here's the applicant's contact information. So with that, I will turn it over to Nancy Rogers, who will provide a presentation on behalf of the applicant. And I'm going to share my screen with the master development plan once I can get it up here.
Maybe I should just begin.
Go ahead and begin, Nancy. Technology is lagging this evening.
No worries. Good evening, City Council. My name again is Nancy Rogers. I'm a land use attorney with the law firm of Karen Cross and Hempelman, and I'm here tonight on behalf of the master developer, Oak Point, for the Lake Point project. We are here tonight asking that the council, following the public hearing, approve the staff recommended motion to approve and adopt the 2021 major amendments to the Lake Point Urban Village Development Agreement. I want to thank Ryan, Selena, and the rest of the city staff for their work on this project over the past several years, and in particular, Ryan for his comprehensive presentation this evening. I'm just going to cover the very simple history and the practical effect of the DA amendments. I'd also be available to answer council questions should you have any. The basic history here is, as has been said multiple times and has you've reviewed multiple times, that the Lake Point project is already approved with the 1,500 dwelling units and 850,000 square feet of commercial buildings. In addition, and above and beyond that, the city and the city council, you have already approved a comprehensive plan amendment, as well as an updated SEPA planned action ordinance that would increase the maximum allowed development. Is there a question? Is there something? No, okay. That would increase the maximum allowed development at Lake Point up to the 1.32 million square feet of commercial and the number of new homes to 1,750. And tonight, what you really have before you is the final element of the process to both increase those development caps and provide the city improved future police service through the public benefit elements of the development agreement amendment. These amendments also directly align with the council's prior work to adopt the comprehensive plan amendments and the updated planned action ordinance. The practical effect of these requested revisions to the development agreement it is this. There are several changes that reflect that since the adoption of the original development agreement, real world matters have been revised. One of those changes is one that Mr. Harriman just pointed out to you. Prior maps, exhibits attached to the development agreement anticipated traffic signals at the two locations on the master plan in front of you, where you now see roundabouts. So we're amending the exhibit to show roundabouts because that's what the reality of this situation is. And there are multiple amendments like that, in particular on the exhibit side of this package that's before you tonight. There are also very simple numerical amendments in the development agreement text itself. You got to change 850 to 1.32 million. We also had to change certain triggers for mitigation to make sure that those mitigation triggers stayed the same rather than got pushed out later because of more development. For example, when things were targeted as a percentage, we wanted to make sure the mitigation came at the right point and didn't get pushed later just because the percentage would happen later from a bigger number. Percentage X of number Y is going to be larger if number Y is larger. So again, just simple numerical amendments throughout the development agreement. Amendments to incorporate technical clarifications that were included in the planned action ordinance, things like clarifying that under city code, an assisted living facility is in fact a commercial use and not a residential use, just for the sake of lack of any questions about that might arise later. And then, and I think most importantly, amendments that added to the list of public benefits that Lake Point is providing to the city. And those are specifically with regard to police. And those I do want to cover in detail. Here, these are the amendments that you find in section 6 of the development agreement. And as we were going about the lengthy negotiations for this entire process, it became clear that the city was very concerned about being able to provide adequate police service to the new commercial areas that would be developed within Lake Point. And so in response, Oak Point offered, and now both the staff and the Planning Commission are recommending that the council adopt these new sections into the development agreement. And the three things that would occur here, number one is money towards new police officers. And that money towards new police officers is structured as 4 payments at specified points in time during the build out of the Lake Point project to cover 100% of the cost for the recruiting, hiring, and training of 4 new police officers. The second item is additional cooperation between Lake Point and the city on the location and the design and other features of the new police substation that will be located within the RCMU zone. That's the pink area in the master plan map. And then finally, it's using CPTED techniques, that is crime prevention through environmental design, to reduce opportunities for crime throughout the project. And I think you heard something about CPTED from one of your prior citizen commissioners earlier this evening. So it's definitely a concept I think you're all familiar with and an important one to have here. So those are the amendments in short. And again, it is this process that's in front of you, or the package that's in front of you tonight, is to amend the development agreement so as to bring it into alignment with the comprehensive plan and planned action ordinance amendments you've previously adopted. If the council desires, I'm happy to walk you through line by line a development agreement. I'm a lawyer, I can do that. It might not be that scintillating, but if you would like me to do that, I can do that. Otherwise, I'm really interested in hearing if there's any public testimony, and would be happy to respond to that following the public testimony. Happy to answer any questions you might have. And again, as I opened with, what we're here tonight asking is that you do approve the staff recommended motion to approve and adopt the 2021 major amendments to the Lake Point Urban Village Development Agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Ryan. The ground rules for public comment during this public hearing are as follows. When your name is called, please give your name and state whether you are a resident of the city of Covington or not. Please limit your comments to 4 minutes. The city clerk will set a timer that will go off when your time is up. When the timer goes off, please wind up promptly. Is there anybody in the audience wishing to address council during this public testimony about the proposed ordinance adopting the 2021 major amendments to the Lake Point Urban Village Development Agreement? Please raise your hand. And Krista?
Mayor?
Yes.
I was just going to say, as a reminder to the audience, if you are a call-in listener, you will dial *9 to raise your hand.
Thank you, Krista. Is there anybody in the audience wishing to address council during this public testimony during the public hearing adopting the 2021 major amendments to the Lake Point Urban Village Development Agreement? Seeing nobody raise their hand, this public hearing is now closed. And council, do you have any questions for Ryan or Nancy? Beth.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So just as a reiteration on the concurrency process, if approved with these higher thresholds and additional trips and so forth, is that going to be a concurrency? This is probably more for Ryan. Is that going to be concurrency that will be taken into account for any future development not in Lake Point? In other words, we are going to assume maximum development to ensure that we have enough capacity and traffic mitigation for all development going on in Covington.
Council member, I'm having a very difficult time hearing you. I think I know what you are asking, and that was basically the concurrency as it's related to Lake Point. Those trips were set aside in the model specifically early on for the development agreement that is in place currently. And those trips were adjusted based on the changes to the planned action ordinance and the environmental impact statement, along with the comprehensive plan amendments that were done last year. So all that is aligned together. And there are certain trips within the city that are designated, like I said, for Lake Point specifically, but those don't exceed the trips that are in the model that we have right now. And Selena is on the line and Dawn is also on the line. They may be able to speak to that further as they have a little bit more knowledge on the concurrency measures.
And just to clarify, when we're talking about the development agreement, this development could theoretically take place up until, let's pick it, 2032, 2037, depending on how long, or if there's an extension on this. Are we looking that far ahead in the future as we're determining the additional development that's happening outside, so that we can plan to have maximum mitigation measures in place for the maximum development? Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not in Lake Point, but I'm talking about as a city as a whole.
Right. That's currently being looked into. And Dawn, you want to chime in on that?
As part of this, we're setting aside those trips, which allows us to, or allows the developer to have that full use of those trips as it's set in all these documents. So yes, going forward, that's all loaded as we go along, and we'll be keeping track of them as it goes from each part as it goes through it. But all total, those are being set aside for the development.
Great. And we are still sticking with the same initial development agreement date of April 2017. That hasn't changed. We're not resetting the time with this new development agreement change today, correct? That might be for Ryan.
I believe we're staying with the same date. Nancy, is that what you have? I believe that's the same.
We didn't change the term provisions, but the term provisions unfortunately cross-reference a code section, which I don't have a vote.
Fantastic. And I want to say I really appreciate the effort that was put into the trail. It looks like some of the trail did get the Covington Highland Trail. It was originally going to go through all of the Greenbelt, and I know that that was something in the past with the large width of it, the 12 feet plus the 2 feet on either side. So I appreciate trying to circumvent as much of that Greenbelt in the way the change is shown on the map to preserve some of our green space. That was all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Does anybody else have any questions for Nancy or Ryan? All right, council, before us is an opportunity to pass an ordinance in substantial form. Is that attached here too? Approving and adopting the 2021 major amendments to the Lake Point Urban Village Development Agreement and authorizing the city manager to execute the same. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved by Jennifer and seconded by Joe to pass this ordinance. Jennifer, would you like to speak to your motion?
Just to thank staff for putting this together. We've discussed this, I feel like, many times, and I really appreciate you all being so patient in answering our questions and being thorough with these presentations.
Thank you, Jennifer. Joe, would you like to speak to your second?
Yes, I'd like to echo Jennifer's comments. I believe we've been speaking about this portion of it for a few years now. It's nice that we're moving along, and I'm looking very much forward to when we get to lay some asphalt down and I can have an easier trip to certain other cities because it's right there closer to my house. So looking forward to that. But I'm looking forward to this development getting off the ground and starting from bare ground to buildings and parks and trails.
Thank you, Joe. Is there anybody else wishing to speak for or against the motion? Seeing nobody raise their hand, I would like to add that this is a long time coming, and I will want to thank staff and Nancy and everybody with Lake Point and Oak Point with this development to work together in a partnership for the future of Covington, and I am looking forward to this taking place if council approves it tonight. So with that, it's been moved and seconded to pass an ordinance in substantial form as that attached here too, approving and adopting the 2021 major amendments to the Lake Point Urban Village Development Agreement and authorizing the city manager to execute the same. I will call for a roll call vote on this. Jared, how do you vote?
Aye.
Sean, how do you vote?
Aye.
Christina, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jennifer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Joe, how do you vote?
Aye.
Beth, how do you vote?
Aye.
I also vote aye. It is unanimous to pass this ordinance. Thank you all very much. That concludes our public hearings for tonight. Ryan and Nancy, thank you very much for the presentation tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next, we will move into new business item number 3, the Soco Park project update. Ethan.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. So this is just an update on the Soco Park project. In December of last year, the city entered into a contract with Hugh, Beck, and Baird to help the city with putting together a master plan and then also for phase 1 improvements at the Soco Park site. And this update's going to be brief, but it's going to set the stage for some future items that will be coming to the public and to the council in the next couple months. So I'm sharing my screen, and these slides that I'm showing you are going to be the same ones that were in your packet. The first one is an aerial, and it's just a 40,000 foot level aerial showing the site in red dashed marks there and its location in the city. It's along the Jenkins Creek corridor. It's also going to be across the street on Wax Road from the future town center site. And next we have a little bit more of a zoomed in aerial that shows 3 different parcels that the city has purchased over the last several years that make up the park site. This is a little bit of an older aerial, so you still see 2 single family unit homes on the parcels, but those have been removed at this point in time. And so our consultants have already completed what we're calling a site analysis, which is basically looking at existing conditions. And obviously, if we look at the bottom of the slide, we see Jenkins Creek and there's wetlands associated with those. And from kind of the high water mark and the wetland delineation, that also sets our wetland buffers and our shoreline buffers. And that does impact a fair bit of the property. So more development and kind of opportunities for putting in park amenities and whatnot will exist closer to the street side. And then the area closer to the creek and the wetland area will likely be more well suited for natural habitat and items like that. I'm not going to go through all the different parts of the park site, but there are open spaces in there. There are some significant trees that are recognized of being on that park site. The condition of those trees, the health condition of those trees varies a fair bit. So they'll likely need an arborist to go in there at some point, kind of help us know which trees are healthy and probably going to be there for the long term. And then some trees we may not be able to plan on being there for a long time. They're also doing some survey work out at the site. So if anybody's been driven by it lately, sometime you may have seen a survey crew out there. They should be wrapping that up by the end of the month. They've also been doing some test pits to kind of understand the soil conditions on the park site as well. Currently, we do have a survey out to the community. This opened a couple weeks ago and closes tomorrow, and we've had an excellent response to it. I think just the first week alone, we had over 300 responses, and I'm sure we've had more since then as well. It's a real brief survey. If you haven't had a chance to do it, you still have time tonight or tomorrow to do so. And really, it's just getting input from folks as to what they might like to see on this site or what's important to them. That's valuable input for us as we try to plan and design options and concepts for this park site. So as far as the kind of the public engagement process for this project, I'm kind of setting the stage for everything with you tonight here. And then I did the same presentation for the Parks Commission earlier this month. Next month, your second meeting in February, the consultant will be coming and sharing results of the survey as well as kind of a recommended concept for the site. That will also be going to the Parks Commission and we'll also be doing an open house. And so though on all three of those kind of touch points, we'll be, presenting and receiving feedback, and that will help kind of finalize what that master plan will be, which will then come back to the council for adoption. This is a fairly fast timeline, but we're trying to get a master plan in place with some cost estimates and phasing strategies so we can go after some grant funding for a state grant program that actually opens at the beginning of March, and that's only occurs every 2 years, so we don't want to miss that window. Important things to keep in mind are that this master plan, as well as the first phase of improvements, is funded through a Department of Commerce grant, which the city was successful in receiving, and that and so that's funding things. And then the other point I wanted to make as well is this site does have some limitations with it. So as we kind of see different concepts and look at different designs and options, there are environmental limitations just because of the wetlands and the sensitive areas. There are also grant funding, what I call grant fund limitations on the site as well. We've used some conservation fund funding to purchase those properties, and those limit how much development we can put on those properties, which is maxes out at 15%, which I don't think is actually going to be a problem for this site. But it does limit, you can't put a big parking lot in there or a sports field or things like that. So with that, there's no action for this item. It's just kind of a project update, but I'm certainly happy to take any questions if the council has any.
Council have any questions? Jennifer?
Thank you, Ethan. You almost touched on it there at the end. I have a question regarding the usability of the space. When the survey was put together, did we restrict it based on some of those limitations, given that narrow, when I'm looking at it, I'm thinking of back like when I was on planning and we could see that narrow development area that was available. So I'm curious, or if we just left it wide open and then let the consultant kind of try to figure out what to do with it, or does the consultant even have that knowledge base to know, the sky is unfortunately the limit here, like we can't do anything because of the wetlands.
Yeah, I would say we didn't say the sky's the limit. We did. So if we said, what would you like to see at this park site? And then we listed 10 or 15 different options, as well as, kind of a other category where they could write their ideas as well. We didn't include sports fields or things like that we knew just wouldn't meet the requirement of the grant restrictions already on that property. For the most part, that is true. There is an exception that I can think of offhand, which is there was a question for dog parks on there.
Mm-hmm.
We know dog parks isn't allowed on the site that we use those grant funds for. But we felt like if we didn't ask that question, just because we already know it's such a interest of the community that people would perhaps push back of why we didn't even ask that question. So we thought it was just good to get that information. If it is, if we do get a response that it's, overwhelmingly popular, then that's just good information for us to know for future planning, whether that's in this vicinity or somewhere else in the community. Or we'll learn maybe it's, not as big an interest as it could be. And that's important for us to know as well as we do planning for our park system. But for the most part, we didn't want to set expectations to people that they were, could have a ball field or something there.
Right, and that's what I was kind of thinking. So I appreciate that. And also, I think it's good information for the limitations to be clear, so that if decisions are being made in the future regarding the town center property, perhaps parking could be addressed there, for instance, to make the space more accessible as a combined use with something else. So this has been really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Sean?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ethan, thanks for this. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to this park getting developed. You know, I couple of comments. I appreciate you talking about the thinking and responding to the public's desire for a dog park. We hear that all the time, and so I think that's a request that isn't going to go away. It's only going to grow. So looking for places to place something like that in the community, I think that should be a top priority for the Parks Department. Two, I also really appreciate your detailing that the work being done right now on this park is through a Department of Commerce grant. We've heard, and I think it's good to get it in the record. There's often confusion on how it is the city has money to do things like this, to plan for parks but can't fill a pothole. Well, these pots of money are different, and we can only use them for certain type things. So I appreciate you detailing that. I had a question for this park and maybe going forward for all of them. Looking through the lens of accessibility and what that means. So how and what are the reviews and how are we determining the level of accessibility of these parks? And I mean it as in physical limitations or mental limitations, that sort of thing. So what is our filter for that, and how do we make our parks accessible?
Yeah, I think that's kind of a question that we'll be continuing to ask and kind of make some choices on as we do a master plan and design for this. Typically, you know, because it's a public park, we'll kind of have ADA standards to build to, and that's kind of the floor, the minimum, and then you know, it can go all the way up into inclusive design, and that's kind of specific towards each element. Playgrounds, you hear that a lot nowadays, because playgrounds on one end of the spectrum are kind of by design not inclusive. They're challenging to children and whatnot. So it's a little bit of a you know, trick, or you have to be intentional about making them inclusive, and that can go for any type of recreational amenity. So certainly on our radar. I think it's a little bit too early to say what decisions have been made about that, but that's certainly something we'll track.
Thank you, Ethan.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Sean. Does anybody else have any questions for Ethan? All right, Ethan, thank you very much for that great update. We look forward to it as it continues to evolve. Thank you.
Mayor, can I mention something?
Yes.
Just an FYI to the council, I just emailed you all the link to the survey in case you've not had a chance to take it yet, so that you can easily access it.
Thank you, Regan. With that, we'll move into new business item number 4 to discuss the waste hauler disruption in service. Since I am an employee of Republic Services, I will be recusing myself and leaving the meeting. And Krista or Regan, if you so choose, please let me know and I can rejoin after this item is finished, but only if you want to.
No, we'll let you know.
Sean, I am turning it over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Great. So Krista, I assume the mayor's off? Okay. All right. So this is the next new business item to talk about the disruption in waste service, garbage hauling the last couple of weeks. Am I turning this over to you, Regan, for presentation?
I can introduce it if you want.
Okay.
As the council council requested,
right,
Pro Tem Smith and Councilmember Harjehausen and Simomo to have this on. As you know, there was some inclement weather that didn't allow service, and then there was a strike in San Diego with one of the unions, and they had the haulers up here stay on that side of the picket line. So we had a disruption of service. Krista sent out some information to you yesterday. The map that was provided to you yesterday is incorrect. The routes are correct, but the days in which they were picked up is incorrect. We asked for public for a new map that's corrected, and they're working on that, but we've not received it yet. It was around 1,900 homes that for 1 week or more did have service that was missed. That I believe, I don't have it in front of me, but I think it was about 32% of the customers that they serve in Covington that had missed service. So that's really where this is at. There are obviously some contractual issues at stake here that the council can discuss. We are in midst of discussing a 2-year extension with Republic Services. I would like the council to keep in mind as we talk about this, it's usually about an 18-month ordeal as you're working through getting a new hauler online. So it's good to have that time for that process to be carried out. And then Don's on here, and Mark and myself, and we're happy to address any further questions you might have.
Yeah, thank you, Regan. So I think for clarity, could you or Dawn basically go into where we currently are in the contract and what that timeline is to renew? So a little more detail on that. And let's say hypothetically we decide tonight we're not going to renew. What does that look like for Covington? What would that mean?
I can share a little bit, and Mark, feel free to add as well. I believe that we have a 90-day notice period, I think, to terminate, if I recall. I think it's that. I'm not exactly sure, but I thought it was 60 to 90 days, something along those lines, that we would have to give them. The challenge, though, that we have, as Regan said, to get a new hauler on board, it's usually like an 18-month process to bring someone on. So technically, the contract expires June 30th of 2022, and so those are kind of the situation we're dealing with that. And then we have the option for two-year extensions per the contract. We did, because of the timeline, just a kind of a reminder to council, I believe on, let me look here, I think I have it over here. Let's see, I believe it was July 28th of 2020, we brought it up because of that timeline too, and we discussed with council whether we wanted to do extension or whether we wanted to go out for a new hauler. At that time, council did elect to extend. That was their intention at that time. So that's the premise that we've been working on going forward. So I don't know, Mark, do you have anything else that you want to share?
Don, that was a great overview of the situation under the contract, because the key here is for the city, we have, as Don pointed out, 2 possible up to 2-year extensions that the city can enter into. And as both Don and Regan highlighted, there may be some difficulties with procuring a new hauler based upon the timelines as they currently exist. As in order to extend the contract, notice needs to be given by March 30th, 90 days in advance. And with the current, with the situation and with all the different supply chains and everything else, it may be difficult for another hauler to get online that quickly. Now, it's something that could be explored in the future, but it would be a tough turnaround to make a switch right now.
So basically what I'm hearing, and then I'm going to open it up to questions, is that we've got a couple options here. We can end our service and we give them a 90-day notice. But the big caveat in that is that after those 90 days, we, in all intents and purposes, would not have any waste hauling services in the city. So so that's option one. Option 2 would just be to renew or extend. And then I think a third option is to discuss some types of negotiation mitigation measures, talk about that extension and enter into negotiation with Republic to see what additional assurances we can get going forward that this would never happen again, and what other things can they provide to make our residents whole. So anyway, you mentioned something, I guess, Regan, we had discussed possible credits. Was there something you wanted to say a little bit more about that?
Well, there's an option in the contract for us to assess performance fees
Right.
that the city would collect.
Okay. All right. Open up for questions. Yeah, Joe.
Thank you, Sean. So I probably have a slew of questions and they'll all come to me eventually. So if anyone needs to cut in, let me know. But when we renewed or voted to work on that 2-year renewal in 2020, how far away were we from that 2-year renewal taking place?
The 2-year extension wouldn't still be in place until 2022. The June 30th being the end of that. It was just to kind of, because of that long procurement time, we were asking in July of 2020, we were still in the existing contract time, but we were saying, now's the time if we want to do something different to start having that conversation, to have someone on board come July 1st, 2022. So that was the basis of it. It wasn't an extension that we made during that time. We're still in the original contract time period. And then go beyond that, June 30th would be these extensions that we talked about.
So then my next question is, I know we've had conversations with Republic. I know Kent's had conversations with Republic. I know everyone's had conversations with Republic in the last couple weeks, because it seems like the new fun thing to do, talk with your garbage hauler. But when we're talking with them, are we telling them that we need more assurances for our residents when it comes to, you guys go on strike, that's not something that is on us, and you're still expecting our full collection. We understand inclement weather, the roads were not safe. The majority of us were staying home because we couldn't get out. So we don't expect a garbage truck that weighs more than our cars to be out there. But are we talking about with them now, if we're going to renew, we want X, Y, and Z, which include if you guys go on strike and miss X amount of weeks of this, what do we get as, to ensure that we're being taken care of as our residents? What if it's an out-of-state strike like what just happened in San Diego, where I'm gonna just say this, had nothing to do with King County, had nothing to do with Covington, had nothing to do with Washington at all. It had everything to do with issues in San Diego, and then the union called the union up here and told them they're not crossing the line. That's a 10,000 foot view of what just happened. But where are we in saying that we need reassurances that if that's going to happen, you're not charging our customers because you're missing their time to pick up their trash? Are we adding that to discussions with them?
I can address that. So like I shared with council, I believe it was beginning of last week, the expectations that we sent to Republic Services, it included several things with picking up the garbage. It included customer service, corrections, and customer credits. Those are a lot of those things are things that they're not contractually obligated to provide, but we did send those over to them. We've gone back and forth a little bit. We are in the process of setting up a meeting for staff to meet with our representatives at Republic Services so that we can get into more detail with those requests. But really, what we're looking for tonight is what would council want us to discuss with Republic Services as part of that conversation?
Well, in all honesty, that I want that discussed in there because I think we need to protect ourselves, protect our residents, and in the long run, we need to make sure we're having a healthy, open conversation with Republic so that way we have a healthy relationship with them as our trash hauler. And I think these are things that need to be in contracts with Republic or whoever we may have as our next trash hauler if we decide to start.
Sorry, go ahead.
If we decide that that's the way we want to go, I think that's something we need to do, is making sure that these are in all of our future contracts, and just having maybe an MOU with them that if something like this happens again, that this is what we expect.
So an MOU outside of the contract it'd be the four corners of the contract, not an MOU that would govern our relationship with them. So I don't know that I'm understanding exactly the points that you're asking us to negotiate.
Basically the credits, what you sent us last week is basically the things I would like us to be discussing with them going forward.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's all I have at the moment.
Okay.
Thank you.
Jennifer.
Thanks, guys. So I did want to address performance fees versus credits. So currently our contract gives the city the ability to assess performance fees, but that would be some number we come up with, and then they would agree or disagree and then just send the city some money to do something with, and not necessarily go back to our residents in any way, shape, or form that were the ones impacted, correct? Is that how
That's correct.
Okay. So I do think it would be helpful if we go the negotiation route rather than just ending service without an 18-month lead time or renewing the contract as it is, given that we do realize that this is a short time frame. This is why it takes 18 months. I totally am thinking that as I'm saying some of this stuff. So please, staff, do not hesitate to say we're not going to be able to do this. So I think it would be helpful to get some kind of credit in there. Also recognizing, you know, I did see the city's communication regarding credits. The trash is still being picked up. It's still being hauled. It's still being taken to, you know, it's the same volume, but the resident is now tasked with the inconvenience of stashing it somewhere for a week, right? And or maybe two, depending on where they fell in that weather strike situation. So I am curious what a negotiated credit would look like, whether it would be enough to appease someone, you know, or they expecting half, oh, I'm gonna get half my bill. But then when you're only billed every 3 months and it's one pickup, you know, divided by the cost of still depositing it, I am curious if it would really be significant, right? Also, I know that in my day job, a lot of our clients expect us as an, you know, my day job organization to have something like a business continuity plan. I'm curious what Republic has, and it would cover not just strikes, not just weather. We're talking anything that causes a lapse or interruption to service, and what triggers it. And I mean, they should. It should be a documented procedure and protocol. So I would be curious if that's available and if staff could take a look and maybe see if that needs to be improved. And then third, obviously customer service, which I think is why we brought this to council to discuss today. Residents were obviously reaching out to the city complaining. I think it would be important to put some expectations regarding communication, phone call, email, some kind of internet presence, whether it's a social media, or I think it would be much more helpful just to be able to go to the website and punch in my zip code or my address and see what the delivery or the pickup status is. That may be technologically ahead of what's doable, but those are just some things that I'm thinking. Also, when changes are made at last minute, an ability for Republic to reach out to residents directly and say, hey, we're coming today. Sorry for the last minute notice, you know, but we were able to get a truck down your street. Expect us this afternoon. Just, you know, more communication is better than too little. And I think that's all I have to add there.
Thank you, Jennifer. That was great. Any other comments from council? Yeah, go ahead, Beth.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know that I'm going to say anything that's new. However, I just want to have it straight in my head. So if we're going to make a decision, today, clearly it probably wouldn't be prudent to just try to look for a new provider just yet, because we won't have time to do that before the current contract runs out. But the continuity of service aspect would be important. And I think something should be done to help the 30% of the residents who didn't get their service for, you know, I'm hearing numbers from 2 weeks to 3 weeks, you know, again, depending on where they're at. And if that can be worked into a new contract or an addendum to a contract, if we extend for a few more years to give an opportunity to look for a different provider or see what's out there, see what other service providers are doing. To me, that seems like we've got three things. We have help appease the people now, we have figure out how we can prevent it in the future, and then we have looking at other options long-term to see if anything else would be any better.
Thank you, Beth. Christina?
Yeah, I don't want to be redundant, but I will echo everything that Beth and Jennifer said. I completely understand that we cannot control the weather and that is out of our hands. However, something needs to be worked in where we have a plan B and a plan C for a company such as Republic, on which all of our residents depend on. And I don't think it would hurt Covington to get the ball rolling and to see. We won't know if there's something out there that's better if we don't get the ball rolling and at least investigate that. There's no harm in knowing whether, you know, this is what's best for us or whether this is not. We know that we have a lot of I personally have a lot of residents complaining. That doesn't mean that they won't complain anymore with a different contract and a different provider, but we won't know. So I completely agree, and something needs to be done for those 3 weeks. My personal recycling wasn't picked up for over a month, and it is what it is. But you know, when your neighborhood becomes a trash avenue, that's not okay. That's not okay, and I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Beth?
Does somebody else want to go first? I want to give everyone a chance to talk.
I don't see any other hands.
Two other things that just jumped on my head. Is there an opportunity for us to only extend for 1 year? Can we renegotiate that so that we're not locked into 2 years and it still gives us 18 months to look for somebody else? Possibly, again, exploring options. And the other thing too is that I think one of the options that was given for residents was to take their trash to a drop-off location. And I'm not entirely sure that for a lot of people, that's something that is really considered an option. I believe Kent, you know, they have over 100,000 residents and only 100 people took advantage of dropping off at Showware. It's not necessarily convenient. And again, I just don't want that to be the fallback for people to have as a method to get rid of their garbage if needed. So I am done, I swear. No more.
Thank you. So I think, yeah, we could. Oh, yeah, go ahead, Regan.
I was just going to ask if you wanted Mark to address Beth's first comment about
Sure.
Reducing the extension time.
Yeah.
Right, so the contract specifically states the city at its sole option can extend the contract up to 2 times, each of which shall not exceed 2 years in duration. So it could be for a shorter period of time as well. And for everything else that council is bringing up, it's at our sole option to extend it for a certain period of time. Anything else, credits or otherwise that's not currently in the contract would have to be agreed to by both parties.
Right. But not including if we decide to extend for less than 2 years.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay. Jennifer.
Just to throw out there, because I haven't heard city staff say it, if we did a year, that still doesn't give them much time to find someone else. So I personally would prefer a 2-year, because our 18 months is what the estimate was to find someone else. So I would be personally more in favor of a 2-year. Yeah.
Christina.
I would agree with that. Again, this was the weather. This was my first and our, I think, first encounter where there was such great disappointment. That doesn't mean that that's not a make it or break it to me. Like you get that chance. Life happens. So at least I would agree completely. Let's give it a fair chance and give it, 2 years and give our staff a solid amount of time to do something with that. Thank you.
We'll go to Mark and then Jennifer again.
Thank you so much for letting me jump in. One thing to keep in mind here is that the city, before council makes any decisions on what they'd like to do, I would suggest letting staff meet with Republic first, because Dawn and I have already been working together to come up with a bunch of options that include everything that's been mentioned here today from council. And we just haven't had a chance yet to set up the time to meet with Republic. So I wouldn't want to put the cart in front of the horse for what we may or may not be able to accomplish with Republic, both in the short and long term.
Oh, okay, so you're saying we should hold off making a decision tonight until you hear back from Republic?
That's what I would advise doing and Regan, you can jump in if you have something different here, but we can present more options to the council. And that right now, I believe we're getting where your opinions are, what you would like to see happen. And then we'll be able to go to Republic and have those discussions and figure out what are the potential options that we want to explore before we come up to that March 30th extension deadline.
Okay. Okay, go ahead, Regan. Yeah.
That's right. What we're looking for tonight are just the items that council would like us to discuss with Republic Services, right? And that's kind of and then as we do that, we'll bring back to council for when it comes for decision making.
Okay. Jennifer.
I just wanted to chime in and agree with Christina. I mean, I have lived here a long time and had excellent service, and even honestly had great service during this weather strike situation. I was alerted it wasn't going to be picked up, so I pulled it back in, and it was fine. So, but I don't want to dismiss other residents that had a different experience. But definitely the history has been good. This is showing a gap in service and an opportunity for improvement to make it better for everyone.
Thank you. Beth.
Yeah, sorry, just one final clarification question. If we talk about an extension, it's going to start in July, right?
Correct.
So it would be basically 2.5 years, because it's almost 6 months out at this point before that contract ends. if we do 2.5 years or a year and a half or some variation thereof, if we do it for any other amount. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that it? Okay, so what I'm hearing pretty clearly from the council, and this is what we've heard from the public, is that we understand that in order to even come up with a new contract, it's going to take some time. 18 months is kind of what we're being told. So, that right there, that's almost the 2 years, as Beth notes, even a little bit longer than that. So, I think it makes sense to be thinking about that we're going to extend this. However, there were things that happened, and we need to get some assurances from Republic that the things that did happen, there'll be plans in place to continue service going forward. We want the staff to negotiate with Republic about those plans. What would plan B be? I think what Jennifer called a continuation of service plan. And then possibility of credits for those that saw their service significantly disrupted. So basically, I think what Joe also talked about, the items you mentioned in the letter. So go forward, see what Republic's willing to talk about and willing to do. And then I think, like others are saying, I think we're looking at opening the contract up at the end of this next extension, whatever that's going to be. So I guess I would just start getting the staff, put that on their radar that we're going to want to go out for bid. I think Christina's spot on. There's no reason why. It's only to our benefit to get more information and see what else is out there. So.
Thank you, Sean. Can I just kind of go through to make sure I've got what I think the consensus is here? In the items that I sent out to council, most of them dealt with things that we wanted to happen during the ongoing situation, like drop-offs and additional times for pickups. The two that would be something we could go back to Republic with are credits to customers and customer service improvements. So I think those are two of the things the council is asking to see. To Jennifer's point, a business continuity plan, and what is Republic's continuity plan in case of strikes or whatever it happens to be. And then it sounds like proceed with the 2-year extension on the basis of those items that we're presenting.
Yeah, depending upon what their response is. So I guess, if they come back and say we can't meet you, then we'll have to talk about it again.
Then that's how we'll proceed. We'll take those items that I just mentioned to Republic Services and bring it back to council.
Great. I think that's it. So,
I'll let the mayor know.
Thanks. Thanks, everyone.
All righty.
Hello, everybody. So are we finished with item number 4? We'll move into, thank you all. Let's move into future agenda items. We do have our council retreat this Saturday on the 29th. And then looking at our next council meeting on February 8th, we do have a possibility for an interview for a youth council leader. And then our 7 o'clock meeting. Does council have any other items they'd like to see on a future agenda? No, seeing no one. Let's move into council staff comments. We will start with Megan. Chief Roberts, welcome. You are on mute. I think your computer's back on mute now.
Hello.
There we go. Welcome.
Sorry about that.
No,
I
it's
apologize.
the night for that.
Man. All right. Sorry about that. King County Sheriff's Office has started with the rolling vaccine mandate terminations, unfortunately. Unfortunately, this means that effective Thursday, we are going to be losing Deputy Branson Carr. I want to thank him for his 5 years of service to the city of Covington. I've worked closely with Deputy Carr in the 3 years. And in addition to the numbers of lives that he has saved, I have seen how much he cares for the community of Covington. When Covington Community Park was trashed by partiers over the one summer evening, the mess was so bad that we had to do a maintenance crew call out. Deputy Carr joined the members of the community to help with the cleanup efforts. When COVID first hit and management of an apartment complex abandoned its senior residents, Deputy Carr and his wife actually offered and made arrangements to clean up the common areas on their own time to help the residents out. Losing Deputy Carr will be a substantial loss for both Covington Police Department and the city of Covington. I also want to let you guys know that my employment with the Sheriff's Office is going to be terminated sometime next week in all likelihood. It's been an honor to serve with you guys as your chief, and I'm proud to have been able to work with all of you and to have been a part of the Covington community. I don't anticipate any further losses from the police department.
That is a big shame. You have been an asset, and Deputy Carr has been an asset, and you are both going to be a major loss to our city. I personally have a problem with that, and I wish that we could find a way to keep you both here in the city. And so we will definitely miss you.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I really apologize for the inconvenience that it's going to cause the city.
It's not, you have no reason to apologize. It's not your fault. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Megan. Is there anything else?
Nope, that's all I've
Yeah.
got tonight.
All right. Thank you. Ethan.
No comments for me tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ethan. Dawn.
I just need to let council know one thing. If you recall, we had some deferred maintenance projects. That was our pavement repair, some sidewalk grinding, and a sidewalk panel replacement. We had asked council back on September 28th to give the authority to Regan to enter those contracts. We had estimated 100,000 for the pavement repair, 100,000 for the sidewalk replacement, and 30,000 for the grinding. The sidewalk or the pavement repair came in at just under 93,000. The grinding was like 7,000, and the panel replacement was initially 78,000. We ended up having additional quantities that resulted in 23,000 additional. So that came out to 101,000. And even though that all came within the 230,000, well below that number, just because of purchasing policies, we need to update council on that change order for that additional 23,000, even though it's within that contingency and within Regan's signing authority. We're just wanting to make sure we do everything and let you guys know and following our purchasing policy. So wanted to let you guys know that. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
Anybody have any questions for Don? All right. Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Selena.
Hi, can you hear me? Okay,
Yes.
thanks. Good evening, council. Tonight, I just wanted to briefly just kind of touch on your little sneak peek preview into the community development work plan that Commissioner Murray shared with you tonight. We are scheduled to have a joint meeting with you all, I believe February 22nd, where we'll kind of dive in a little bit more to our work plan. Just a heads up that we'll be kind of looking at our 2024 comp plan requirements. There's a lot of pre-work that staff is going to need to do. We're hopeful to kind of get a really solid roadmap for how we are going to get across the finish line with those updates in 2024. Obviously working closely with Regan and the rest of this team on legislative updates that could very well just, you know, change things as we move along. So there's going to be a lot coming out. We're going to do our best to kind of capture all of it. And we look forward to sharing our work plan with you later in February. Thank you.
Thanks, Selena. Casey. Are you with us still, Casey? You were on mute. And I think you have
Casey,
to hit
as a
star
reminder,
9.
Star 6.
Okay, I'm
Star 6.
calling in. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, Casey, now we can. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. One thing that I wanted to mention at the public hearing that I forgot on the ARPA funds is you may have seen it in last week's weekly update, but we received the final rules from Treasury, and they're allowing cities and states, counties to take the first $10 million received of ARPA funds as revenue losses. That really opened up made things a lot easier for us administratively. So we can take those first, our whole $6 million that we're going to be receiving as revenue losses. And it just makes it easier for us that we don't have to do a bunch of separate reporting in all of those different categories. And we'll still be tracking everything in a separate ARPA department, and we'll still be following all of those budget proposals that we adopted during the 2022 budget. But I just wanted to mention that going forward, that things will be a little easier on staff on administering those funds. Thank you.
Thank you, Casey. Regan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Earlier on in the meeting during the Lake Point public hearing, I believe, Beth, maybe you brought it up about traffic concurrency. So I wanted to fill the council in on a discussion I had today with AWC's lobbyists that I met with. The missing middle housing bills that both Joe and Christina testified at last week, those had fairly strong opposition to both of those from cities. AWC was opposing them as well. So a lot of stakeholders met and last week, and they were coming up with some potential compromises. I've shared all those with Selena, and like Selena said, those could throw a huge wrench in our yearly work plan. But I asked that specific question about HOA, CCNRs, HOA rules, and how these new statutes, if they're passed, could impact those, but also traffic concurrency and regional planning. Because in our regional planning with PSRC, we're told to stop growing. You're growing too fast, right? There's certain areas of the city that can't be developed, that can't be upzoned because they don't meet traffic concurrency. And basically, this new bill would eliminate traffic concurrency. It would eliminate HOA rules and basically usurp those local authorities. So that was pretty surprising and can be a major impact. So we're tracking that really closely and seeing where that goes. I did want to mention and just thank staff and council for putting together a great agenda for our summit coming up this Saturday. And we're excited about that. And then I think I feel like the rest of you just absolutely heartbroken over losing Megan and other officers in this way. They're exceptional. They've saved lives, prevented a lot of crime, and have done just a dutiful job in representing the city of Covington. And I'm just absolutely proud that I've been able to work with Megan even before she became our chief, and she's done an exceptional job and she will be missed. We've had those conversations and wish her the very best of luck. Just so council knows, we do our Sergeant Easterbrook. I have asked him to step in as acting chief for the time being while we work out a plan moving forward for a transition. Other than that, that's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Regan. Mark.
Thank you, Mayor. There's no executive session tonight, and I have no further report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Krista.
I just wanted to also say that I'm sorry to see that Megan will be leaving, as well as our other Covington police. I'm sad to hear that. That's all I have for tonight.
Thank you, Krista. Jared.
Yeah, yeah, it's heartbreaking and just disgusting. I'm in the same fight with Chief Roberts myself after 7 years of honorable service in the United States military. But thank you for what you've done in our community, and it definitely doesn't go unnoticed, and you're not alone. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Jared. Sean.
Yeah, just thanks everyone for a productive evening. Appreciated that conversation we had earlier, and as well as the public hearing. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Sean. Christina.
Yeah, I feel like I heard very few things past what Chief Roberts had to say, though I did, but I'm not only heartbroken, I'm livid. It doesn't make any sense. I did testify to something that also doesn't make any sense, taking local control away, not only from our local leaders, but from our neighborhood leaders. I don't often get this disappointed, but I'm so disappointed in the system. It doesn't have to be like that. That's why, because it doesn't have to be like that. But I'll get off my soapbox and just wish everybody a wonderful new year. I hope more things start making sense. And yes, have a wonderful week.
Thank you, Christina. Jennifer.
Well, I feel like Chief Roberts just brought down the meeting so much. Right, with what Christina said, I had a hard time listening to Dawn's report. Sorry. Chief Roberts, you will be sorely missed. That was a surprise. I was not expecting to hear that news tonight. So thank you. And as always, thank you to staff for keeping us prepared and all of the information that we've been requesting this past week, and the residents' input, pulling that all together and relaying, and yeah, just appreciate everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Joe.
I'm going to echo a few words I've heard tonight, and I'm utterly disgusted in what's happening with two of our officers. I'm disgusted with the policies that have been coming down from the county on this, because these are people who have done their job faithfully and done everything right. It's not right. And it's not only hurting them, it's hurting us as a city, it's hurting our residents. These are people who have done their job faithfully to this county, to this city. Chief Roberts, I'm going to miss you. I thank you for everything you've done for us. I thank you for your dedication. And the way I look at it, we got a week to fix this. So I don't know how long, I don't know if it's going to be doable, but we got a week.
Thank you, Joe. Beth.
Still processing information. I just want to thank Sean for doing a great job, stepping up and running that portion of the meeting. It was a great conversation. And it's been an emotional night for me, to say the least, with everything going on. But the hammer drop with Megan's news, and I echo what everyone else is saying. I'm sorely disappointed, to say it delicately, and heartbroken, to say it humanely. Really going to miss both of them. I had a chance to do a ride along with Deputy Carr, and that was fantastic a few years ago. I got a chance to know him, and Chief Roberts. I mean, you've done a lot for this community. I really hope that we can turn a corner and make some serious impact. Thank you very much, Joe and Christina, for testifying at the state level. Very much needed to advocate. And I'm gonna, with that, wish everybody a good night.
Thank you, Beth. Christina and Joe, thank you for testifying down there. I did have a conversation with Senator Doss personally about the bill and my concerns with how that was set up and how Covington has already set goals to meet that without being mandated by the state, and working closely with the cities of Kent, Auburn, and many other cities to share our concern with some of these bills that are being pushed and the ones that were pushed last year. And I want to, Megan, I appreciate everything that you've done, showing up to the 9/11 celebration out at the ranch that day. I didn't expect anyone to have time to, and you and the sergeant both showed up. That meant a lot to me, and everything that you and your team have done. And we're going to miss you. I know Joe said we have a week to fix it, but if I was there, I would do it in person, but I'm going to give you a standing ovation for all the hard work that you've done. And I want to thank you for everything that you and your team have done. So thank you. And if I could do anything tonight, I would do it. I know that Regan has had conversations and I have had conversations to try and put some thoughts into this with certain individuals, but we'll see how that continues to go. With that, I will turn it over to our second public comment period. Speakers will state their name, address, and organization. Comments are directed to the city council, not the audience or staff. And comments are not intended for conversation or debate and are limited to no more than 4 minutes per speaker. And with that, is there anybody in the audience wishing to address council tonight? Jonathan, welcome.
Hello, everyone. Hope you're having a pleasant evening. First, let me say that I'm sorry that Covington is going to be losing officers because of the heavy-handed tactics of the county and state governments. Second, I did want to also add that, frankly, the garbage situation, the contract as is frankly unacceptable. The garbage contract should be opened up for competition. And frankly, multiple providers should be able to serve the city, and the citizens should be able to choose who's going to give them the best service for the best price.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Well, good night, everyone.
Good night, Jonathan. And thank you for the information you shared the other day as well.
No problem. One caveat there. You do have to remember to apply your system patches because it's no longer going to happen automatically for you.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
You can take your backup first at that point.
Thank you. Is there anybody in the audience wishing to address the council tonight? Seeing nobody else raise their hand, we do not have an executive session and our council meeting is adjourned at 9:28. Good evening, everybody, and have a pleasant evening. Thank you.
Night.